It's 8 o'clock from Flow FM 92.7, your Go With The Flow radio station. We're back for the second half of our conversation this morning, and that has to do with analyzing and talking deep about some of those trending stories we brought to you at 7 o'clock. Welcome to Headline News Review. I am Adeyemi.
I'm Danielle. Shitta-Bey. Thank you for joining us.
And as usual, we have Nicholas Owarunoye in the studio with us this morning. Morning to you, Nicholas.
Good morning.
How are you doing this morning?
Oh, fine, thank you.
It's good to see you. Let's get ready. Are you fired up for the conversation this morning?
It's good to be here.
It's obvious. Obvious. You love it in here. It's a beautiful space. All righty. Don't forget as well, to the views to be expressed in the program is not in any way the position of Flow FM 92.7, but solely as expressed by the analyst Nicholas Owarunoye or any of calls that we received this morning, the caller I mean to say. Let's get right into the conversation. But before then, let's also remind you
that we're streaming live on Facebook at FlowFMNG and on YouTube at FlowFM927. You can get in on any of these platforms and be a part of the live conversation happening in the studio right now. So let's get into the conversation. The Nigerian Labour Congress has called for the resignation of the Minister of Power, Adedayo, following the persistent collapse of the national power grid under his leadership. Last year we had about, 12 power grid collapse, and so basically, what's the performance of the Minister of Power in relation to this?
Well, I think the basis of that call was on the fact that he said, that they can manage it better than this, that they can't guarantee that there won't be a power grid. And if you recall what I said, the last time we were here on that, I said by now we should have his resignation, and that is what NLC is saying. And secondly, I did equally point out that compared to what we'll be having, in the past, there has been some kind of improvement in power, and maybe likely as a result of the fact that there were tariff increase, that allowed, the structuring of, the power districts into grids, into grade A, grade B, and the rest of them. So that
band
could be
E,
one band A, band B, and So what it simply means is that the distribution companies had a better way of raising more money, knowing exactly how to making estimates that yields more revenue to them. So they buy more power and supply. But on his call that they don't know how better to do things and that they can't guarantee the continual collapse of the grid, I think it was uncalled for and it was unprofessional. And honestly, I think he got it coming, like the Americans will say. He had it coming, so. But when you look at it by and large, I equally see there is a bit of frivolity, in his delivery at the Senate, asking for 8 billion naira or so thereabout. For sensitization. You kind of ask, sensitization, who does the sensitization? Who does it have? Do they have an information, more, an information unit that is more equipped than National Orientation Agency and the Ministry of Information? So that is, we need to get that clear. We need to understand, because that money is way too big, for that kind of project. I would have preferred some, whatever you can get into strengthening the infrastructure, the power infrastructure, and not just on on a jamboree, a publicity jamboree.
All right, I was just going to have again, we will just go back to it. What is exactly the root cause of what we're experiencing in the power, sector, and then asking for the Honorable Minister Adedayo to resign. That's coming from the Nigerian Labour Congress as well. So is that the solution? Will somebody else not come in and will still face the same problems? Remember, we had Professor Batsinaji, who was minister of one-time minister of power as well too. We didn't see even as much. Even if I think he was a professor of electronic, and majoring in power, generation and distribution like that. Again, if we could have somebody, an expert like that, a professor like that in the power industry, in the power ministry, what's our problem then?
No, you see, first of all, let me clear certain things. There is nothing wrong with people, hiring and firing when you don't get results. Don't forget, at some point, Argentina had about 3 or 4 presidents resign in a row. When they had serious economic issues, so you have presidents resigning. So there is nothing wrong with hiring and firing. People can hire and fire. If you don't measure up to the metal. But the thing is that, like I said, there is a lot of interest involved in the power sector. It's a very, very delicate balance of power and interest. The case of Batinaji, if I may, I think Batinaji was one of the short time he stayed, he actually achieved a lot. In fact, the privatization thing happened under him. That's number one. Then two, is this same Batinaji that is responsible for that power revolution you have in Abia State, Aba specifically. So, but because of the politics involved, like I said, political interest forced his exit. The president was forced to fire him. You understand? So all this information they're out there in the in the public domain. But you see, I think that is absolutely nothing wrong asking for a minister to resign if he feels that he cannot effect change. But fundamentally, I think the problem with the power sector is that there is a kind of overload, a very big overload on the infrastructure we have. With the rate of urbanization, industry brings about urbanization. People migrate. So when you have too much people with very little resources for people, the infrastructure tends to be overweight. You understand? So then you are going to be having power collapses and things like that. So normally, when you make a minister, the minister is there to implement the president's policy. So what is our president's policy in the power sector? So is the president willing to continue with the old way of doing things, or is he going to, like Yar'Adua promised, that he's going to declare power, that is emergency in the power sector, and he failed to do? So those are two things. So actually, I think before we entirely blame the minister, we have to look at the body language of the president too, in that critical sector that can drive economy. Yeah.
All right, let's move let's talk about Labour Party. Let's talk about the crisis in Labour Party at this point. The legal advisor of the Julius Abure-led faction of the Labour Party, Kehinde Edun, has alleged that Mr. Peter Obi, the party's presidential candidate, is now back and working with the embattled national chairman.
Well, that is I think I don't think that there has been any point where Peter Obi said he has left the party. That he has left, he has moved on, he has defected. There is no time he has said that. Then we equally see Peter Obi, when you look at his body language, he's very reserved when it comes to talking about things like that. He wants to make out, wants the public to see that he respects the process. The process right now says, what the court says is that Abure is the national chairman. So Peter Obi has not made any contrary comment. What you just see is that the caretaker committee that he supported, has appealed that judgment. So, that kind of lacuna, allows whoever, to make pronouncements. You understand? We just have to wait and see. You don't just jump and say, but, it doesn't work that way, because this is politics. It's not, about policy initiation. It's not about business. It's not about where you have to be categorical. So I think it's still a game of politics. So let's watch and see what happens, really.
Now, with his backing, will this put to rest all of the, back and forth internal crisis rocking the Labour Party? There's still more. It's even deeper than what we see on the surface.
No, it won't. Because don't forget, I said that, the other faction has gone on appeal. So I think, the other faction where the obedient movement happens to belong to, want to see the process through. They want to see what the Supreme Court is going to say invariably. So it's after then we'll know whether he's going to abide by that, the decision and stay put in Labour Party, or he might decide to, port elsewhere, like we put it in Nigeria.
All of the crises that are affecting the Labour Party, do you think it has any effect on Peter Obi and his ambition, in the 2027 election?
Peter Obi is not about Labour Party. And Labour Party is about Peter Obi. Let us not, there is no need to belabor the fact. It's very clear. Where was Labour Party before Peter Obi came in there? You understand? So, we are talking of the massive tsunami that happened in 2003. Would it have happened if Peter Obi weren't there? That is the question we need to ask. So it is, for me, I don't think it's going to really affect him, really, as a person. But unfortunately, maybe in terms of political fortune, appointment, and election and things like that, yes, there is a very big challenge for him there because Nigeria does not have the provisions for independent candidacy. So as long as you have that, then it might really affect him because Peter Obi is in a lacuna right now because if he moves from that party, the impression will be out there that he doesn't stay long in the party. He was in ABGA, he moved to PDP. So he was in PDP, he moved to, those kind of things, those kind of, it's not always, it kind of creates an impression of a rolling moss that gathers no, that gathers, a rolling stone that gathers no moss. But then, again, there is always a flip side to that saying too, that a rolling stone, even though it gathers no moss, acquires a fine polish. So which is it going to be?
Do you see him defecting?
He's a politician, and that is what Nigerian politicians
now
do.
If all of this crisis this is not us preempting the courts, but at least if all of this crisis don't get settled, or maybe he gets settled by the courts and some parties or some factions feels very dissatisfied with all the decision of the courts, and as a result putting pressure, a lot of pressure, making it stay very unbearable. Do you see the possibility of him, potting?
And if not potting, maybe a merger.
Okay. Let us look at it this way. There is an African proverb that says, a strong man makes an oath. A strong man breaks an oath. So it's about the person. You understand? It's about the quality of person that is doing that thing. So if he's a very weak person, he has a weak personality, that could undo him. Now, you talked about a merger. Yes, you can have a merger, because that was what happened in the case of, what's it called, APC. Now, don't forget that some of the legacy parties, one of the legacy parties that you have that formed ABGA, that formed the APC is ABGA. When Rocha Sokorocha under ABGA moved into APC. You understand? So, ABGA is seen more as, there is that perception that it's a legacy party too, but you still have ABGA. Whereas all the other legacy parties are gone. CPC, ACN, they are gone. Another, like minds, they are gone. So you could equally have that kind of massive movement, from labor, you understand, on other that is gone through let me not use that word, other dissatisfied interest coming together to form a mega party. You could have that. And of course, you could have a working relationship. Don't forget that, sometimes, members of parties work at cross purposes. When they see, you have a very good example in the case of the minister of the FCT, Nation's Capital Minister.
Some Wike.
He's still very much in the PDP, but he's working for an APC. So there are so many options for, people in obese, predicament to exploit,
All right. Well, let's hope he's able to exploit it properly as much as possible.
There's nothing like hope there. It's an option. If he likes, he chooses it. If he likes,
okay. All right. Well, let's move to this. Let's move local. Let's come to our hometown and talk about this accident that happened in Kwara very recently on the Okolowo Bridge. And what do you think needs to be done to constantly avoid accidents like this? Because apparently there's one every year.
Okolowo is fast becoming, one of the national, that is a national flashpoint on our highways where you have casualties. Between November and January, close to 53 or 50 people died from road accidents on that Okolowo exit alone. And there has been talks about getting, the federal government to build an overhead bridge.
All right, Nicholas, can you please hold your thoughts? Let's take this call. Good morning. The number to call is 0807 777 9927 to join the conversation or to react to some of these, headlines we're discussing. This next story is 18 dead in fatal Okolowo road accident. Yeah. And Nicholas, please continue.
Yeah. So the thing is, enough call has been made, but we have a bit of a problem here. That particular intersection joins both the state and the federal road.
Yes.
The capacity to build that overhead bridge rests squarely on the federal government. But with so much priorities, with the federal government's resources spread thin, there is always a problem, of getting funding to do things like that. I recall that the senator, Kwara Central, made that call. I think was it December. I think he made the call. Around that period, that something has to be done, and it was because of an accident that happened that the governor had to even go there. Governor Abdurrahman Abdul was there to see the tanker, explosion that killed people. That was about 25 or so died. So you have we have a big emergency in our hands, and we have a place that has an insatiable appetite for claiming human lives. And something really drastic has to be done about that. But having said that too, that there is a survey, survey kind of, and backed up with a lot of data, backed up with a lot of experts' opinion that good roads, good infrastructure does not necessarily prevent accident. Because you have a case of when I was in Abuja, there was one of those special reports we did with the former medium I worked with, where the figures we got from Federal Road Safety Commission showed that you had more accident after you have better roads along the, I think it's Abuja Lokoja, or that axis. You have, because that is Abuja Abaji, to Lokoja axis, you had more accident. Why? Because of recklessness. Why? Because there are poor education on the part of drivers. You need to see the way some of these local transport drivers do. You need to see their level of recklessness. When you see things like that, you understand what we are saying. They are just not disciplined about road rules and things like that. So it's what the picture I'm trying to paint is that we have a commingling of factors that brings about that thing happening. You understand? So it is, of course, there is into that mix too is proper traffic management too. Because proper signage, proper orientation too. And the presence of officials along those flashpoints at regular intervals, especially in the night. It has to, we have to look into things like that if we need to stop this happening regularly.
Well, again, you just a bit, in a way, answered my next question, and it has to do with that particular road, and then having the presence of, the Federal Safety, Corps, and maybe Quatma and all of this. But my question would be, how much do you think the governor should do, being the Nigerian Governors Forum, to see that he can, get the attention of the federal government, and of course we have senators representing, that particular, area. With working with the with the governor, being the Nigerian Governors Forum, with the influence that they have, how can attention be gotten from the federal government to quickly find something to do on that road? Because I remember this is one too many.
50. Now you have another one. 18 now. No, it's way too many. It's way too many. You see, I don't even think the governor even needs to leverage on his influence within the Nigerian Governors Forum, to find something on the temporary to, give assurance and confidence. I think it's within his power as a governor to kind of have a sit down with some of these traffic managers in the country. I'm sorry, in the state. He has his that is a Quatma. Then of course the federal road, and even the this VIO, we call them VIO. This this Directorate of Transport Services or something like that. DTS. He could have a sit down with them to see to a way of managing traffic as it is right there, because it's not as if the roads are bad. It's just because of it's not the roads intersection is not properly channeled. So then, of course, you have a lot of one-way driving because that place is far secluded. It's in the outskirts of the town. So drivers tend to be very reckless. Now, what I think they should do is that the government should provide necessary backbone and support for 24-hour monitoring of that place. And this is not easy for the agencies to do this on their own. No, it's not. You know, in fact, it wouldn't be too much if the governor decides to set up a task force for that particular access. You know, task force, providing them with, funding, maybe by way of allowances for overtime, providing the necessary equipment, where they are, then of course, if there are signs, that the federal and this,
road signs,
signs, and then of course, reorientation, re-education of mostly people who ply that roads. You see that you have more of heavy duty vehicles plying that road. You understand? So you move and talk to the owners of those vehicles and reach out to them that when you are coming maybe a kilometers from that place, you have to be very careful. Then there must be presence of official transport and even police officials, even army officials there, to at least tell them, enforce a particular speed limit in that area. So these are just low-hanging fruits that we can, grab, in the interim while we consider getting funding. And I equally know too that, the governor has been up and doing in looking at where to tap into to do roads in Nigeria that are federal, like that has a federal that is owned by federal government. You have the case of the Ayenkori, Ojoku, Ofa road that is, it's quite an impressive project. And how it came about was because the state government tapped into the executive order that was made by the previous government, even though President Muhammadu Buhari wanted to scrap it, but he said no, we haven't explored the options that is open to Kwara. So that is why you have BUA, this cement company, funding it in exchange for tax relief. So if those credits still exist and there are companies willing to take up that project, to do the overhead bridge, I think it's something worthwhile that the governor should consider.
Well, we asked that the National Assembly members should probably come together and cause some whip supports to see that there is something done to that road at least. All of this,
yeah. I even wanted to make a point too, and this is an appeal, to both the governor and the lawmakers. This is no time for politics. We are talking about human lives. Yes, we've been hearing a lot of stories about, some frosty relationships here and there because of some interest in the party and things like that. This is not the time. I think the senator has done his bit, raising that matter. That the Soli Mustafa has done his bit, raising that matter at the National Assembly. I think the father of the state, who happens to be the governor too, should show that he's listening, and something that ought to be done. Let them put the politics aside and let's face the lives of the average Kwaran, the average Nigerian that is endangered in that trouble spot.
All right, let's quickly add one more before we leave this morning, and that's still with the ruling party, the Labour Party, and the opposition party. Some of them are in agreement, some of them are in disagreement. They are taking opposing views on this one, and that has to do with the conduct of the by-elections. Some say INEC should be the one to conduct, by-elections, and some say, well, it shouldn't be INEC. And of course, some statements coming from, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, rejected, says INEC should stop, conducting elections and allow parties to internally decide who replaces an elected officer who is being who resigns or as a result of death.
Yeah, you see, I want to align with Falana, and I think that the INEC too made something similar to that it saves them costs, and for me, I think it is going to stop. It will be another strong point why, to stop this needless defection. We've said it here that the candidate and the party are joint. You understand? So if they are joint, and that person happens to die, what happens? God forbid, say a president dies. Do you conduct a by-election? You don't. The deputy takes over. Because the party brought him into power. So why can't that happen when you have, when maybe a lawmaker dies and things like that? That is a very good question, that we should ask ourselves. Apart from the fact that it saves, resources. Then again, the federal government, INEC has to go a step further. That is, they are going to amend that section of the constitution, by insisting that whatever arrangement that the party, is going to do has to follow due process that has been vetted by INEC itself. That is how you ensure democracy continues. But by and large, it's all about interest. The opposition party, we want to have a go at that seat when somebody dies. You understand? Then, of course, the ruling party who have more numbers know they will lose, if they are upstaged. So there's a lot of, interest that is bringing about the cacophony of different noises we are hearing about this thing. But for me, what I think, I'm apolitical about it, but I think it serves Nigeria better. When a party puts in the resources to win a seat, it should have a first, if that is it a right of first refusal,
Okay, because on that, what was the situation in Kogi relating to, this call for, by-elections, just in case maybe an elected officer dies or resigns from the party?
The case
in the case of Faleke, and then that election,
there are still, I think the jury is still out on it, and it wasn't exhausted. From, if I can recall, it was not tested, and avenues of redress were not properly followed through to the end. I would have loved to see a judicial pronouncement on that, but it wasn't. It was left inchoate. So you see, for me, I think there is a bit of anomaly there. Because the moment he has been elected, that is, Faleke has been elected as deputy. So if anything had happened to his principal, if they were sworn in, he takes over. So for me, it's like breaking the confidence that the late governor-elect had on his deputy. You understand? It's a faith. He had faith in Faleke as his deputy. You understand? And the party endorsed that choice. So coming around to now conduct a by-election to bring in a third person, a different person entirely.
Then why the conversation then? If why are we dissatisfied? If what it is INEC conducts a by-election, because I recall the conversation at that time was Faleke and the late so well at the time leading candidates at the time. Had not been declared yet by INEC and had not taken, the oath of office. Again, shouldn't he have continued that same ticket? Because again,
he should have. That's my point. That he should have. That the Faleke should have automatically been sworn in as the governor. This is my opinion. But the party, and INEC, for reasons best known to them, decide to do a by-election. And you see, if we have had this Falana's proposal being implemented way back, we wouldn't have that lacuna. And we probably would have spared a lot of, the heartache we had under the former governor, or this drama between EFCC and the rest of them, the case of that gruesome, killing during the election and things like that, the kind of tensions we experienced, So we could have been spared all that. Maybe we would have had a different kind of horror. I don't know, but because one can't really say. I know, but we are not imbued with predictive power. So by and large, I think it substantiates the reason why we should take a second look at what Falana is saying and what he's proposing, and what INEC is equally saying in terms of saving resources of the electoral body.
All right, thank you so very much, Nicholas. And that's how far we can go this morning. Thursday, the 23rd of January, 2025. The views expressed is not in any way the position of Flow FM, but solely as expressed by the analyst this morning, Nicholas. We'll go today and make a big comeback tomorrow. Same time, 8 to 8:30. My name is Adedayo, Adeyemi.
And I'm Danielle. Shitta-Bey. Thank you for joining us.
Here to